Well, Chris, here we are. It's been
Oh,
half a year since our last shop talk, maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit less.
yeah, it's been a while.
How you doing?
I'm doing great, and nice to see you back on here.
It's good to be back in the saddle again. We've taken a very extended break, and lots has happened that we can catch the community up on, share some pro tips as we always do, and have a generally insightful conversation around this beautiful world of landlording that you and I love so much.
Yeah, and so what are we going to talk about? Let's do our quick intro, and then we'll hopefully wait for a few people to join us.
Sounds good. Hey, Christine, thanks for checking in. Awesome. I'm going to get the Facebook side going because I want to understand who's on Facebook watching us. Good evening. It's been a while. Is that you, Lewis? I'm taking a guess here. I could be wrong. I haven't checked you out. Let's quickly get off. I've got some great pro tips around income verification and COVID. This is a juicy one. I've been on 3 real estate conferences out in Toronto over the last couple of months. I've got a new job. I work this company you may know of. It's called Single Key. So I thought we'll talk about that. And rent abatement was a hot topic. And Chris, I know you had a focus on talking about evictions because you're seeing some issues right now with people talking about the challenges that they're having around evicting and the challenges. And I thought maybe let's just have a quick survey and see what people are doing for Christmas gifts and tenant appreciation as it is that time of the year.
Right, and we look for your feedback after the show, what things you'd like to talk about, and we'll start gearing up some shows. So off we go.
Okay, Chris, how's it going?
Good. Here we are. Got a few more people joining us. Welcome, everybody. For those of you who missed at the beginning, we got a few topics we're going to talk about tonight that seem to be the regular, reoccurring things. We'll go through the page a little bit, touch on a few questions that are popping up, and offer you our insight on that. And MacKenzie will have a few topics too, and then you give us some feedback after the show. You comment in there, so what things you'd like to talk about. And we just hope to get this back up and going again. We have had quite a little break, but look forward to chatting with everybody again.
Absolutely. This won't be the full hour. This will probably be, I think, just a quicker getting back in the saddle kind of thing. So we can probably talk about the break and where we're all at, kind of just some mindset and yeah. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Alberta Landlord Shoptalk show, the all things about landlording, the only show dedicated to this beautiful world of providing home and accommodations to other fine folks. So,
and
Chris,
our new little catchphrase that we came up with, Mac, is
yes,
you do it because you're really good at talking.
Well, I would need to have it written in front of me, but I think if I'm good at memory, and I might be cheating, the best and most trusted resource on Facebook for landlords in Alberta.
We are. Folks, we're sure we're tooting our own horn a little bit, but it's actually you guys. You guys are making it the trusted and best site for landlords in Alberta. And because we're dedicated to landlords and dedicated to you, and you're dedicated with your professionalism, your positive input, we have become, without a doubt, the best resource on Facebook for landlords in Alberta.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah, it's a very community type effort. So, you know what I did actually just completely random. There is an awesome, I'm not going to name names because I just got very grace. I had a landlord reach out to me. He wrote a book about landlording, his trials and tribulations over the last 30 plus years of being a landlord, including dealing with just some crazy stories that he's learned from the School of Hard Knocks. And I got to proofread his draft book. And hopefully when he's ready to take the next step, I get to talk about it and help him out. It was a really good read and some great tips. So,
hey, why aren't we going to have him on the show?
You and me have actually approached this gentleman in times past, and he's politely declined. So I'll leave that with you, Chris. You might be able to do some deductions there and figure it out. But let's keep his name off the radio or off the air here. So where should we go here? Should we just talk about updates, or should we just drop a pro tip right at the top of the show?
Go for your first pro tip.
Yeah, let's do it.
And by the way, just so everybody knows, there's a lot of new people because we haven't had Shop Talk going since there's been a ton of new people coming on. So if you have a question, throw your question into the comments because we'll see them pop up. And you know what? We'll address your question because our whole show is about the interactive learning. And yeah, absolutely. We'll switch gears mid-show to answer your question. So by all means, throw your questions up.
Yeah, especially if they're burning. It's kind of fun kind of troubleshooting as a team. So hey,
Mac,
Lewis,
what's your pro tip? Go for it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to dive into it. If you're on the live stream right now, we've got lots of hellos with Facebook users. Throw us a name so we can just say hi to you. Okay. Yeah. So COVID and income. I love to say that this was my idea. I just happen to listen like a sponge, occasionally pick up a good tip or two. So this came from out east. I was at actually, you know whose show is that? Kayla Arden. She put on her Ontario Landlord Watch show in September. No, it's October 1st. And great tip I picked up. So if you got someone applying on your unit and you want to just kind of confirm an extra layer, or a better question is ask them how they managed paying rent during COVID. So if they were an honest individual tenant, they kept on paying rent through COVID. Perfect. You can again just go and verify that through either bank statements, get the confirmations on the e-transfers from the emails, and that's perfect. Now, if they stop paying money during COVID, okay, that could be one of two things. One, they just kind of cheated the system, or two, they legitimately had problems, lost their job, and needed to go on to that form of EI. Oh, I've got some feedback there, Chris.
That was me.
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. So I thought this was brilliant, and so I just say, hey, during, I mean, this will become less and less relevant, but probably right now, if you're getting someone who's just recently switched, this might be still an important question to bring up, and it's a good tell of character, right? So obviously, if they paid rent through COVID, brilliant, they can prove it better. If they didn't pay rent, then you go, okay, no problem. Can you just show me proof of your payment arrangement? So if we remember during our eviction ban here in Alberta and many other provinces, you were forced to document and actually do a payment plan. And we had to, as homeowners or the landlords, accept those payment plans. You remember that, Chris?
Yes. Right.
So that should be, in theory, documented somewhere if at least one of the parties did do their diligence. So they should be able to present that. And then they should be able to show, again, those payments through, again, bank statements and e-transfers that matches that payment plan that they were following suit. And then at the last part is if they did lose their job because of COVID, and a lot of people did, they would get, there's some documentation tied around that. And Chris, help me out here. You get, when you leave a company, I just left TELUS this year and I got it, is an employment, an EOR, ROE, record of employment, which I think is CRA. Is it a CRA thing, or is that from?
Well, your record of employment is if you were let go or something, then you're going to be using that to get your EI.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So but if you left on your own accord, then there's some delays as to when you can collect your EI. So
100%. But there's a piece of paper. So you just basically gave a great tip there. That piece of paper should be able to be presented to you to prove, say, hey, not just taking the tenant's word. In this industry, it's trust but verify. We trust everyone, but we verify they're telling us the truth, because when people are in adverse, challenging situations, they're going to do whatever they can to find housing. And I honestly wouldn't expect anything different, but you got to verify what they're saying. So that's a government piece of documentation, the record of employment, that actually backs up saying that they did lose their job. And here it is. So
Just going to throw this in. Jennifer, you commented a minute ago regarding tenants' mentality. If you could just elaborate, then we'll come to your question, because I'm not sure where you're trying to, what type of mentality change. So sorry to throw you off track there, Mac, but I'm interested in what Jennifer had to say, and I just want to see what she wants us to talk about. Yeah, carry on, sir.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, that was basically it. It was, I never even thought about asking how they handled their rent during COVID. I mean, all my tenants renewed this year, so I haven't placed any tenants this year, which is the first time in a while, which is kind of nice. But then I'm feeling I'm a bit rusty. I'm a year out of the market now. I got to see if my skills are still sharp. But I just thought that was kind of another way to approach the issue. And there's always a piece of documentation somewhere that you can usually back up a story with.
Right on, right on. Where do you want to go next? Just waiting for Jennifer to ad-lib a little bit here.
Sure. Well,
let's talk about evictions. That's one thing that's going on.
Yeah,
let's talk about it. Rob Bonin and Donald Gray are two eviction experts on our page. Highly recommended that you reach out to them if you're having trouble. I do evictions as well. Where I do it is I do a lot of local stuff with Ponoka because I'm fairly well known within the community, and we've had some real challenges here with some challenging people challenges with challenging people that think there's some entitlement issues. And so I help out the local guys. I have stepped out of my box here and done a couple in Calgary, but sort of the ones where Rob's thrown his hands up and said the landlord is just too much to deal with, and I kind of throw on a different hat and a different approach, and I paid for it. These landlords are a bit demanding, but you wonder why they're in trouble. So let's talk about the evictions. The first thing you want to do with an eviction is you got to have a reason. And you want to go to Section 21 of the Residential Tenancy Act. Under that, there is a whole list of things that apply that you can evict. And one of the questions that come up says, well, if I've evicted them for non-payment and then they pay me on the 13th day before it's up, on 11th hour of the 13th day, then my eviction's no good. All right. Well, you know what? Let's say they do pay you. That's fine. But you've Bill Biko, when we've had him on the show here, the educated landlord is what he is all about. And you have to document. And when you're done documenting, you got to document again. When you have all that paper backing you, that's what's important. Whether it's a neighbor complaining about your tenant or another tenant complaining about a tenant, you have to have all this documentation. So what I'm getting at there is, so now the person's paid. All right, well, that's round one. They paid up, fine. Now the next month comes, you're in the same scenario. You give another eviction, and your patience get the best of you, and you say, okay, I'll give them a break. And they paid on the 11th hour and 30 minutes of the cutoff. The third month comes, they do okay. The fourth month comes, they're a couple days late. Fifth month comes, and we're back to this 14-day 11th hour thing again. All right, now is where you've built your case. Clearly, there's a history, and so there's a reason to evict is for continuously late payments. Okay, that is a reason to evict. This is why it's important to document. This is why it's important to issue these eviction notices. And everybody, most of you know, but those of you who don't, an eviction notice has to have 14 clear days. So the day you serve it and the day they're to be out don't count. So there's 14 days in between. Right, Mac? So
absolutely,
very, very important. If you don't follow that, you're going to be in trouble with your process. Not in trouble with the RTDRS, but you're going to be, with the Residential Tenancy Act, but the whole process will become in question. So follow the process. So 14 clear days. So that's one reason. Now you're continuously late. Another is interfering with the rights of a landlord, interfering with the rights of a tenant. There's the criminal component of it. If there are illegal activities, if there's an assault in the place, if there's an assault on you, some of these 24-hour evictions. But the biggest thing is, if you know you're going to do this and you're willing to follow through, you got to file with the RTDRS. It's $75. In the big picture, $75 is nothing. Absolutely. If you're not comfortable, and you know what, in the end, let's say they pay up and you get a good relationship going, and they leave in 6 months after that, you deduct $75 out of their damage deposit. When they leave, say RTDRS filing $75, I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd deduct it off, and if they question, tell them take it to the RTDRS for $75 if they want.
And Chris, I'm going to ask you a question for folks that are newer. Can I deduct unpaid rent out of a damage deposit that's meant for damages?
The answer is yes. However, you want to do damages first. So you deal with the damages of your building first. So you've done that. So let's say you got to clean carpets, or you got to fix a wall, or you got to paint something. You deduct damages first, and then you'll be because that can't be disputed like a rent can be. And then after that, you'll take out what's owing for rent, and then after that, you'll file with the RTDRS. You'll write it off, or you'll send them a demand that you want to play. So Definitely. You want them to pay. So essentially, in the big picture, non-payment of rent is considered, damages in a different way. It's not actually something broken. Yeah.
In Alberta.
So now let's say you're going. I'm going to try and speed this up because we want to get a lot in this 1 hour that we have. So now you're going to get you've decided to go the route of the RTDRS. And here's what you have to ask yourself, and ask yourself very seriously. Are you prepared to articulate, and can you articulate clearly your situation? And is it not worth considering hiring somebody to maybe represent you? Because there's some special articulation to the courts or to the hearing officer that gets you in a good position. A lot of times landlords will come in and say, the tenant won, this whole thing is geared towards the tenant, and they go on and they get angry. I will say, and I'll say over and over again, is that the rules are put in place, and the rules are relatively fair. It's how things are presented. If you're not presenting them properly, there's a very good chance that it could go in their favor, or it could be a wash and you don't get what you want when you should have got it. So if you're going to talk to Don, or you're going to talk to Rob, that's what you need to do, or talk to me. Go ahead, Matt.
So Chris, what's just one or two quick actionable steps that someone can do right now to improve the documentation? Well,
revisit your lease and ask for help on here. There's some people on here who's got some really good leases. I ran into a situation here in Ponoka just 2 weeks ago where we did an eviction, and the guy's lease was actually a 1-year periodic lease. Oh. And I couldn't get my head around that, and I'm not going to get into explaining it here, but the hearing officer, because it'll take too long, but the hearing officer picked it up as a periodic term, or periodic lease, 1-year periodic. And I'm going, how did she get that out of there? Because I missed it. And anyway, the landlord's changing their lease. So revisit your lease, ask people on here who've got leases, look them over, and don't start writing in crazy stuff that you're just not going to get around. And the biggest thing is, you people that want to keep giving them breaks and breaks and breaks, and you're running your business with your heart, I commend you for your compassion. However, run it like a business. That's all I can tell you. Run it like a business. It's your business. Mention this is your business. And that's important to know.
Absolutely.
And because you will lose. And if you want to go another month with no rent, but you're debating whether you should pay Rob or Don to do this for you, you know what? How much more are you willing to lose? That's very good money put in the right place to hire those guys.
Okay. I like it. Good points there, Chris. It's with evictions. If you're going through the first time, the money is well spent with someone that knows the system. They even have been so involved. Again, going with our eviction guys, they know how to slightly change wording to present based on the personality who is the tenant dispute officer. They're very good. So well worth it, and especially in the reducing your own personal stress, because it can certainly be stressful at times. All right. Well, let's switch a gear here. Let's take the question off the page. So Jennifer is throwing in some notes for us, and Jennifer, just kind of, as we ask you questions, fill it in on the fly here. I'm just going to do a quick summary to get people up the page. So your first question was, how do you explain the change in tenant mentality? So I do need you to clarify this a bit. And then your next statement says, I've been in management for 20 years and I can't understand how to discern pro tenants. So we could talk around some ideas and pro tips to weave these kind of folks out, which, again, I had a long conversation with a landlord today and we talked about, I'd say 85% of the tenants out there are awesome. They are easy to work with. They pay rent. They're just looking for a quality place to call home. Bob's your uncle. And that's the same on the landlording side of the picture too. There's probably about this 10 to 13, maybe 15% of tenants that, and when you think about housing, everyone needs housing, the whole society. And when you look at the whole society, that's a lot of different types of mental challenges, everything, every degree of everyone is out there. And so when you try to house some certain kind of folks that might have some of those interpersonal challenges, that could be, more of the challenging kind of relationships, but they still pay rent. It's just more effort to maintain. But then there's that 2% that is, you want to avoid at all costs. It will destroy you. It's the professional tenants. It's the slumlords. I use these words lightly because there's not a lot of them, but the ones out there that are out there do a lot of damage to people's livelihoods on both sides. So, and that's the ones we call professional tenants that we want to avoid. So we can kind of dive into that. So let me just finish up what she's writing. So I've lost communication with tenants. I have placed 2 tenants in 2020, so during COVID, both placed with the promise of caring for the property. And now I'm cleaning up the mess. So Jennifer, as I keep on reading this, can you clarify what you mean by promise of caring for the property, how this was agreed upon, if you had a contract or something in writing to be kind of absolute in terms? I'm going to kind of press you on this. Don Gray has helped with the volatile clients, but it's more about finding qualified renters. Okay, totally good question. So you got a couple things here. So let's talk about, what do you want to do the first question, Chris? What do you think?
Let me jump in there because I'm clicked in with her here as to what she's talking about. And she's placed 2 tenants in 2020, both with promises of caring for the property. So that to me just says that she's got some tenants who say, oh yeah, we'll look after it. They've done a great sales pitch about themselves, but unfortunately there's a little bit of wool pulled over Jennifer's eyes, obviously, and probably not by any fault of hers because he's trying to get a renter. They sound good verbally. I guess, did they check out good on paper?
Yeah.
Go back to your screening process, I guess, Jennifer, and say, what could you have done different in your screening process? What other question could you have asked? What other call could you have made? What other check could you have done? Is it a credit bureau? Would that have helped you? Is it a single key? Would that have helped you? Is there a couple more calls? Something there is amiss, and maybe they're just that good at covering their tracks that you were going to get it regardless. Mm-hmm. But I will say it's time now with the economy the way it is and the lack of space available for tenants. We as landlords, you can pretty much pick it, because I hear all the time on here where, yeah, I just put the ad up and then within the hour I had 20 people interested. Well, that tells you about what the economy is doing, right? So when people get behind, get that first eviction notice out on paper. Just tell them, if you feel bad about it, here's your out. Sorry, you know what? It's just a matter of process. If you're going to pay, fine. But tell me when you're going to pay. But unfortunately, I have to give this to you because it's part of the process. And too bad if they don't like it. If they don't like it, that's a key for you right there. It's time for them to go. Run your business. And as tough and as hard as it sounds, it will pay it forward for you at the end. So
totally. Well, so I actually picked up a great tip on this today too, because again, I think I had an over 2-hour conversation on the phone. It was is right at my alley. So she we're talking about more about finding qualified renters. So there's the age-old question. My tenant is a painter. My tenant is a trade. My tenant is a landscaper. My tenant has ABC skill that can help me improve my property. You've got to vet them. So I mean, on the qualification side, if there's perhaps a consideration to do a rent discount for labor of doing whatever they're skilled in. Couple things, you still charge them full rent. They pay the rent in full. And then if you guys do a side deal, say, hey, I'll take $100 off if you do fix whatever, right? Fix the appliance in the house or do some drywall and whatever that might be, then they're still incentivized to actually follow through, do the job to a good standard, and then you'll e-transfer a separate transaction and payment back to pay them whole on that. Trying to find people that can look after for carrying the property. If they are cleaners, try to find third-party validation. So you'd Google and look at Google reviews. Maybe they've got some reviews in the Better Business Bureau. If they're running a actual business, let's remember, we should talk about Airbnb arbitrage that FSC Stone brought up the page. That was such a good conversation. But it was back in October. It's old. Okay, sorry, I just flashed my mind.
Squirrel.
And so depending on the business, there's probably a business license required at the local level. There's probably a bond or insurance requirements. There's probably other things. If they're running a proper business, they're going to have these safeguards in place to, bond, ensure their work is covered and protected. So if they don't have not bothered paying for any of these things, those are red flags that they're kind of going by the seat of their pants. And it's a midnight operation just to make a quick buck. And they're not actually properly set for the long run. And they can leave you high and dry when a problem arises on the job here.
Matt, I'm sorry, were you talking about a tenant doing the work or someone on the outside coming into it?
Well, it's actually applicable to both, but in Jennifer's situation, on her first point, she said she had placed both tenants with the promise of care. So I was actually referring to the tenants. So my first statement was, if I'm going to do a side deal with a tenant, I want to verify they're actually good at what they do. So again, go through as if you're going to vet a company or a job, look at past jobs, referrals, things of that nature. But if you're comfortable that you think they can do quality work, don't just discount the rent and hope they do the work. Make them pay the rent in full, and then do a separate e-transfer on the agreed amount discount. So if it's $150 off rent for whatever the job is, only e-transfer that discount back to them when the work's completed. Then they're motivated to get paid to do the job properly.
And you know why else you do that is when you go to refinance your place and you want to show income.
Yes.
You want to show this. You don't want to show 1 month. Well, why was your 1 month only $1,000 and every other month's $1,150?
Yeah.
You want to show a continuous flow of cash flow and show good cash flow, and then you want to show the expense. So twofold. The biggest one is you only pay people when the work's done, and if you have to supply some of the materials, so be it. But you don't pay for labor, and if they deduct it when the job's not done, they deduct it off the next month's rent. Absolutely not. You're paying. You're giving an eviction notice because the game's afoot, and you're going to get it. And here it comes. So be ready for it.
Yeah, exactly.
What's next?
On a side note, today the interest rate just went up again, 50 basis points.
Oh man.
Yeah, the mortgage renewal. This is a total side conversation, but I renewed my mortgage, one in October. I've got one at the end of this month coming up. I'm doing 1 month or 1 year terms. I'm locking them in. I'm kicking the bucket down the road. I am hopefully optimistic. End of 2023, we'll see rates start coming down.
So I'm presently doing some financing as well, and what's been presented to me has been two ideas on this. Is that they're instructing people not to lock in any more than 3 years, obviously. And the other school of thought is variable rate. You're going to take a little bit of a licking at the beginning, but then you're going to be able to reap the benefits of when the rates come back down. But the other advantage of that is you end up. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought here. you end up being able to lock in at any time with a variable rate. So you can get some control back as to when you can lock in. So variable rates are really good with that respect of it. So
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Part two, Jennifer's asking is how to collect. And I've got two takes on this. I've got a side note. I got a new job. I don't work at TELUS anymore. I came on board with Single Key. So I'm just gonna throw that out right now. So I work for them. So full caveat, folks, I work for Single Key. However, I still highly recommend them, and I'll give you the reasons why. And there's another good tool out there. It's through Front Lobby, and they have something called rent reporting, which I'm also a big fan of. And this will help talk to Jennifer's questions around about collecting on damages. So how to collect on damages? There's what is there, Chris? You need to get a judgment, right? From your hearing. You have to file that for.
You file the judgment, and then you get it registered, and then this is where you go back to your original intake information. Do you have their identification? You take a picture of their driver's license and have it in the file, and that way you have a picture of them, you have a birth date, you have format, you have the information you need to properly file with Front Lobby, because they'll want a birth date, because John Doe is the same as the other John Doe, and the only thing separating them is their birth date. And these are the things that you have to have, and take that information, put it in your file, and keep it for down the road. Hopefully nothing ever happens, but when it does, you're prepared.
Which I'm a big fan of the very complete digital applications, either with Single Key or pick your favorite credit card check-in tenant report kind of provider. Neighborly does a good job too, but Neighborly is now Single Key. If you didn't know, we acquired them in October, so it's been busy since we've been on the show. There's just so many nuggets to talk about. But yeah, because you can make a requirement on those applications to collect a picture of a photo of a government issued photo ID. So passport, driver's license, you have it on file. It's fantastic. You can make pay stubs a mandatory requirement. You can make pictures of their pets a mandatory requirement. So you really start off well with a good piece of documentation on all the different variables of your new tenancy. Okay, there's quickly for you, Jennifer, there's three ways of collecting on damages. One is the traditional route that's been around forever, going through what Chris just said. You got to file once you have a judgment, then you have to go and garnish at the employer or perhaps at the bank. It's painful. It's a horrible process. It's time consuming. It will take years off your life. I don't recommend it. Number two is you can go through the next traditional route of collections. Collection agency will typically, you have to have enough damages to make it worth their time. If it's only a couple $1,000, they probably won't pick up your job. If they do pick up your job, you can expect to lose between 40 and 60% of the owed money to pay in collection fees. So you're getting a small chunk of money back. The third option is where Front Lobby comes into place, which is rent reporting and the ability to report a trade line. So essentially, Front Lobby has gone through and have given you the same function as a bank or as a car dealership, that you can go and check their, not just check the credit. That's what we do on the Single Key side, but they can actually go and open up a trade line. So essentially, if this person at any point in the future goes to borrow and need to use their credit, they really can't, because there's this big, ugly looking mark on their credit score. It says Front Lobby, rent owed and unpaid rent, and it's whatever that balance is. And so you do not need to go through RTDRS to report anything that's absolute in nature. And what I mean by that, it's on your lease. It's black and white. It's not subjective. So if you've got 3 months of owed rent and your lease says rent's $1,500 a month, well, that's $4,500 you can put on that open trade line as rent in arrears, and it looks like it's unpaid, and it hurts the credit score. So then they're not going to get that next car loan if they need that in life, and they're not going to get that next line of credit if they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do. They all of a sudden become very motivated to pay you back to get that mark off their credit score so they can continue on living the life that they want to live. So I like that. On the Single Key side of the picture, we have something called rent collection, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. We've just basically rebuilt it on the back end too, so it's a little bit better, more reliable. We switched up the providers that we're using, but it's pre-authorized debit. So Chris, how do you pay your utility bills? Do you pay on a credit card, or do they just take cash out of a checking account?
Well, right now they take it out right out of my checking account.
Perfect.
But I've noticed, TELUS being one of them, your former employer, is now they're charging you a fee if you try paying by a credit card.
Okay, yeah. I wish I had I know the story. Basically, there was a case like 3 or 4 years ago, and I forget what tribunal or legal process it went through. I think it was the CRTC, or no, that's for telecommunications. I forget. Anyways, we'll digress, but we'll quickly go down this route where you brought this up, Chris, is businesses are now allowed to pass the credit processing fees on to consumers. And TELUS is one of the big enterprises out there, well known, that took the first step and publicly said, yeah, we're going to do that. You're more than welcome to switch over to check-in and save that 1.5% or 1.9 or whatever they're charging.
Yeah, interesting, because now I lose all my flying points. Jennifer, yeah, your last comment there, Frontline might be, I'm certain Frontline is, and reach out to Mac off the air and he'll guide you through that and get you connected there. You know what, at the end of the day, it's the cheapest way to collect without hiring a collector. And collectors, I'll be honest with you, the job I used to do before I got into my policing career was working with a financial institute, and we did do our own collections. And at the end of the day, if we did fire something out to a collector, they make a few phone calls and then they give up. If it's not easy money for them, they don't waste their time.
So this is where you became the really cool Mr. Noble that I know you to be. Interesting.
The hard ass guy.
Mr. Collections.
Yeah.
Okay.
I talk tough on here, but you know what? I do have compassion. And I've had some tenants that's had some difficulties, and I've worked with them. Yeah. Sometimes I trust a little too much, but I'll tell you, most of the time it worked out. But you know what? I sit back and think, what would I tell someone on the page with this exact question? And then I follow through with that. So.
Oh yeah! Wow. Okay. Yeah. 100%. So I'm going to wrap up on that thing. So where I was going with that, Jennifer. So a single key, you can do 3 transactions or 3 leases per month that you can collect rent-free automatically through pre-authorized debit, which is great. And then on top of that, we have a program called Rent Guarantee. It's kind of like insurance for guaranteed rent. So basically, it's based on your tenant having a job. They have to meet some very pretty relaxed criteria about rent to income ratios. I think it's at around 45%. But we basically qualify nearly everyone. And if they qualify, you're guaranteed to get paid rent up to $60,000 or 12 months, whichever comes first, $10,000 in damages. Plus, if you have to go down the worst case scenario and do an eviction, we'll also cover up to $1,500 in legal fees. And we're just as motivated to get that person out as you are, because we're paying out of our policy. We'll help quarterback that process with you, so you're not left to yourself to fend. And I think it's a great process, and I think that product is really good for anyone that's a new landlord that knows they don't know anything. And the premium is 5% of your rent. So it's like, give it $100 a month, and depending on what your rent is, you're paying to have a peace of mind at night that you're not going to get the horror stories that we hear in the news and the media about these professional tenants taking a poor landlord to the cleaner and they're financially ruined. So it's a great way to get your feet underneath you until you get more confidence and learn the best practices that we talk about. I'm
gonna grab a question off the page, Mac.
Do it.
Okay, so this one I remember from memory. It's such a simple one, but I want to bring it up. Question was, who should be responsible for changing furnace filters in a house? And I'm going to tell you, from a hands-on landlord perspective, and even if you're not, you need to be changing those furnace filters for many reasons. One is it gets you in the house with some regularity so you can see what's going on with your 6-figure investment. All right, that's important. It's a simple walkthrough, check it out, check your furnace. Yeah. The other thing is you want to see, there's some, you pull that filter out, have a look at it. Are there toys and confetti and stuff stuck in there? I've seen it. And what's going down the return vent, and why is that stuff in there? because your furnace will suck stuff right straight through to it. And that's what your filter's for. So what's in that filter? If it's a bunch of animal hair and you don't allow animals, you know, I'm sure you can tell, like, people don't shed that much hair into your filter. So where's this hair coming from? That's a question. Another question is what's that doing to your furnace? You have a plugged filter, your furnace is working that much harder and it's getting that much hotter because there's no airflow going through. The other thing is the filter that you put in, those 3M filters, you know, with the little zigzags in them, you know, those really thick ones, Mac. Those ones are hard on your furnace. And if you ask a lot of furnace guys, they will tell you not to use those. However, there are some people that want to use them because they want the maximum filtering they can. If you're going to do that, you should be changing that. If you're in the house or what, you should be changing that nearly monthly, because those things catch every single thing out there. And there was a question put through on the rant and rave locally here. Someone saying, hey, look at this filter. Says, who knows a good furnace cleaning company? Because clearly the last one didn't do anything. Well, what's interesting is the comments that got back to the person on the rant and rave were, why don't you clean your house?
Oh, nice.
So if you have a dirty filter, have a second look around. Is that house really that clean? Is your property being looked after? So there's a lot, obviously, that you can tell by pulling a filter out of your furnace and having a look at it.
That's a good idea for an infographic. We should just take a picture of a filter and Chris's pro landlord tips. I think those are phenomenal because it keeps a pulse on your property before, you know, your tenancy goes sideways, and it prevents a small mess turning into destroyed property with tens of thousands of dollars of damage. And I never really thought of judging the dirtiest of a filter on how clean the property is being kept, but it is all related. That's more of an indirect relationship, and that's actually another way to look at it, Chris.
There you go. Yeah, I just wanted to grab that one off the page because I thought it's a good one. And you always have to be looking for, well, you need to go in and have a look at the property. That is a very valid reason to go in and do an inspection. You should be going in every 3 to 4 months anyway and checking those filters. Don't leave it up to your tenant. You do your work. If you're not a hands-on person, it's time to learn. Go and check your filter.
If you can. I'll throw a caveat at you, Chris. Well, what if you're a remote landlord and let's say you're in one province and you're investing in another province, or you're not?
Oh, I got an answer for everything, Mac. If you're in another province, and your property is in a different province, who have you got as your backup? Who's your go-to person? Yeah, you've got to have a whole bunch of safety nets. And who is your go-to person? When I go on a holiday, I have 2 go-tos in town here that will go and look after my stuff at a moment's notice. And why do they do that? Because I do it for them. We got this understanding that we know when shit hits the fan that it needs to be dealt with, and I will deal with it. And I have an expectation of what they'll do for me as they do for what I'll do for them. And so there you go. Simple. What have you got? What's your backup plan?
Yeah, no, you kind of went to the same place I was going. Is you've got to have a trusted boots on the ground. Absolutely. Christine, I know we've chatted a few times on this page. She's got remote properties and she's got a contractor that she's trained really well. She gives reliable work to, and in return, he's super loyal to her. But he also knows what to look for. So every time he goes in to fix something, she's getting a free inspection. And he comes back with pictures, and she's helped him to have the keen eye of what to watch for instead of just walking in blindly, fixing the toilet and then leaving. So absolutely, no, you're bang on with that. Shoot, I was talking to Lori. She's got a 6-figure judgment. That blows my mind. That must have gone through the Queen's Court of Bench because it's over $50,000. Unfortunately, it's over 8 years old. I know you can do the reporting if it's less than 6 years old to front lobby. So I was going to direct her that way, but that's wild. That's like a destroyed house or something going on there. Yeah. Let's kind of pivot on a lighter note. I didn't think we were going to go this long, Chris, but I guess you and me do like to talk, hence why we have the show called The Shop Talk. What are you doing for tenant appreciation and Christmas gifts and holiday gifts, and how are you showing your happiness?
You know what I do is first off, as I get the gift certificate, my gift certificates I get are to the local grocery stores because they support local, and I will get them. I don't get the MasterCard. I get specifically so that it has something in that.
Sobeys, Safeway, whatever.
Yeah, it has, it can be applied to food because and then the one year I know the people, one year I did it, they went out and they bought a nice turkey for their family plus all the fixings. But now, it's a tough go with food. It's ridiculous. So I will be getting gift certificates. Now, here's the thing about gift certificates. You can write them off and just keep record of and keep a copy of the receipt and keep a photocopy of it and everything and which person you gave it to. And you can write that off. And I've already talked to my bookkeeper about it. And she says, yes, it can be done. And then there's just do it right. And so I do get my tenants a gift certificate. I don't like to give back a rent reduction because that goes back to my original comment about when you have someone work for you, you want to show the cash flow. Yeah. So I give them a gift certificate, and depending on how long they've been with me, I'll be giving out $100 one for some and 50 for the others because they haven't been there as long. So yeah, and Love 50. What can you get for $50 now? It's not a point of what you can get. Is that I just have a tiered system, and I'll follow through on it. And the longer you're with me, the more you get. So.
Yeah. So on that note, Chris, I have done exactly what you've been doing. I do $100 because I wanted to make a big impact to make that time of year special, right? They go a little extra, buy a little bit more of the fancy food that makes kind of having a nice meal with family and friends. This year I pivoted. I'm going to do something in person. I did not realize, and I did not shop local. I went to Costco.ca, so not local, but they have a huge selection of different gift bags from as low as $30 a gift basket up to like $200 gift baskets. So I average around about $100 a lease. If there's maybe 3 people on there, I might go up to 150, and I just try to buy something really nice. I have done gifts on lease renewals too. This year I was kind of lazy. I didn't do it. So I thought I'd do a little bit more at Christmas time. I try to do one big, thoughtful, impactful thing to kind of show that you care for them, right? And just like, it is. It's a people's business. Landlording is not about the rental properties. It's about people. And having that connection is really so important. I'm
going to throw this. Sorry, Matt, go.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll throw this idea out. I've mentioned this before, and I haven't done it yet. And something I've always wanted to do. And I learned this one day. I ended up talking to a fella who was a landlord. He told me this. He charges. He figures out what his rent is for the year. So, for argument's sake, the rent is $1,000 a month.
Sure.
So he charges. He divides. Sorry, let's do $1,200 because it's easier. So $1,200 a month. So he charges an extra $100. So he'll go $1,300 a month. And if he's with them for the full year or up to the end of the year when Christmas comes, he will either give them whatever month they started. So if they came in say June, so they have 6 months, they'll get 6 months rent, 6 months back. They'll get $100 back. He doesn't tell them. He just goes and takes it and gives it to them. So, if you have somebody there, so that extra $100 basically is a savings plan for them.
So he gives, so he charges a premium on his rent. I'm assuming he's got probably some good cash flows. He's got some margin to work with, and he'll take $100 from every month's rent. And so if they're there for 6 months, they'll get $600 back at Christmas time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. And if you're there for a full year, then at Christmas time, here's a check for $1,200. Thanks for being a good tenant. So basically, it's a savings plan. He just doesn't tell that. But if they bail on you, they don't get it back. Simple. And your money to the good. So it's built into his rent, and I thought that was a really cool idea. I haven't got there yet. It's tough to get there with the economy the way it is right now, but I hope to be able to do that one time. But in the meantime, I'll try to my generosity go through with what it is. Cards. I will say that one other landlord that is a member of our page, I know that I've had extensive chats with him. I'm going to tell him who it is. It's Gord Heisler, and he posts it, and it's Casa Capital. They have in the past, whoever has kids, they load up their truck full of gifts, and they go around and wrapped gifts and give them to the kids or to the parents right close to Christmas. to put under the tree for the kids.
Yeah, very cool. Literally, it's a full pickup of toys, just
Yeah.
wrapped up. Yeah, I saw that as well.
I think if you it's not Google, sorry. If you search our page, either Gord or myself, I forget. I know I posted or he posted a picture a few years ago.
Yeah, that's a great one.
It's really cool to look at. See a truck heaped with the doors open, heaped full of presents for your tenants' kids. That's very, very admirable.
Yeah, I'll answer. Well, before I answer Lewis's question, I saw someone else say they knew that their tenants had kids, so they did actually a mix. They did a food gift card to the grocery store and then a Toys R Us gift card for the kid. And that's just that little thoughtfulness to look after the loved one in the family, their kids. It goes so far and driving a connection to having your tenant want to communicate you when they're in an emergency and they're trying to protect your property. They're going to take the extra effort to notify you quickly to help prevent possible damages if there's something going on in the property. So it's critical. Lewis, do you know if you can write off 100% of the gift cards or just a portion? Thanks. Okay, caveat, we're not accountants or bookkeepers, but just from what we've seen, Chris, what's the answer?
The answer is yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
If
you're one of those guys who gets gift cards for everything all year long, yeah, you're going to get questioned. But look at the time of year. Like, look, does the CRA have any common sense? Well, scratch your head. Probably not some days. But you know what? $100 gift certificate at Christmas time. Are they going to question it? Probably not.
No. And I've even written off. I bought firewood. My one property's got a fireplace in it. I bought firewood off of Kijiji, and I used the e-transfer, and that was my receipt. And I wrote that off too. It's anything, as long as you've got a receipt and you can tie it to an event, so Christmas and what and who's it and being used for and why. Like as long as it makes sense to be a charitable gesture, it should be no reason that you can't write it off. Right. Again, caveat: talk to your bookkeeper and accountant, not us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what else? We're getting close. We got 6 minutes to go here. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, Mac, that we can fit in 6 minutes?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know. I was going to talk about Airbnb arbitrage, and that is a whole nutshell. And there was also that rent abatement one, which we didn't get into.
Well, we can touch on rent abatement really quick here.
Okay.
So what is rent abatement? Mac, you want to describe what that is?
Yeah, it's nuts. I left the post here. So rent abatement essentially is you're not fulfilling your obligations as a landlord to the lease. There's deficiencies, and the tenant can go to the RTDRS or any legal tribunal and win a judgment against you to pay an amount of lost, a discount on your rent for not supplying what you promised to supply in your lease.
Or the basic essentials of like under Alberta Health and standards.
So heat, building envelopes so there's no holes so bugs can get into, hot water,
mice, bugs, everything, right?
Yeah.
So can you get touched up for that as a landlord? Absolutely. So it comes back to don't be a shitty landlord. and I'm a little more colorful than Mac is, and you can see Mac smirk when I use those kind of language. But you know what? That's the black and white of it, folks.
I just went to 14A in this show, but okay, continue on.
But you know what? The seriousness of it is that you got to do things right. And, like Mike Holmes, you watch him, just do it right. And if you do it right, you're not going to have a problem. You're not going to have somebody come back after you. You're not going to have somebody going to hit you up for 3, 4, 5, 6 months worth of rent because you haven't followed the process for not evicting them. Just follow the RTA. It's what it's there for. Ask questions on this page. Mac or I will jump in, or some of our other admins, they'll jump in, or we will get some of the very knowledgeable people we have on here, because everybody wants to see everybody else successful. And that's you don't want to have to pay a renter back because it's just not good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I found the post. It is lengthy. It's got over 2,000 views. So it was definitely a topic of interest. Essentially it's a condo. So strata, there's condo fees. It's in a condo building. There was damage outside of this landlord's unit. that actually affected the unit. I think they lost some living space as they had to wait for repairs. This landlord's at the mercy of the condo board because they're the one that drives the repair schedule because it was a common area damage. And so the tenant wanted a 25% discount on rent and wanted it done and was going to withhold rent. Actually, December 1st. This was back on November 29th.
Well, first off, to touch on that, the tenant can't withhold the rent. That's immediate eviction.
Yeah.
Write the letter. They can't withhold rent. They have to go through proper process. What's the next part of that?
Yeah, just the same thing. Yeah, it's just it's super long and reading it. There's some good tips here.
But there wasn't a judgment against that landlord. That was just the beginning of here's what's coming down the pipe towards the landlord. How do they deal with it, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was this tenant pressing the landlord for rent abatement. And
well, they're not actually an abate. Well, yeah, they're just wanting a reduction for the inconvenience. Yeah, I'd let the tenant push for it, but I would have my due diligence of answering questions of the who, what, where, when, and why, so that you can keep the tenant informed, so that when they do challenge you in the RTDRS, that you have that information to be presented and you fight for your position in that. If you lose, then I would take that judgment and I would pursue the condo board because maybe they're not doing their job properly and they're not being their due diligence in getting this done.
Yeah, I think the course of action, I mean, it's already happened. It's 7 days into this month now, so I'd be curious to what their update is. But like you said, continue as normal, pay rent in full. If they withhold, start the eviction process, do your documentation, keep the rent coming in. If they feel that the tenant's still wrong, say, let's go open up an RTDRS case. Like, I support it. I'm doing everything I can. And this landlord did respond super fast when the damage initially happened, with support and some drying machines and other things. But again, they're at the will of the condo board. So it operates a bit different.
Just as a final note on that one, if the tenant does deduct, say $100, you've given the eviction notice and the tenant leaves, deduct $150 out of their damage deposit. And then the difference and let the chips fall where they may later on.
Yeah, totally. So Lewis asked a great question. What is the future of our shop talks, Chris? What do you think? We haven't even talked about this actually.
Yeah, well, we'll do that quick because we're right on the hour now, but I think we're going to open up, maybe go every 2 weeks. I'm not sure if we'll do another one now before the end of the year, but we want to throw this tidbit out there and maybe we'll kick it off in January. And that would be, that'd be fun.
Yeah, well, they're going to be less frequent, higher quality, a little bit more focused on some content. We can probably do some actual RTA references on maybe a few different examples. We're still working at getting some key speakers on the show, including representatives from RTDRS. That's in work still. And I have started a podcast. Hey, Chris, do you want to be on my podcast?
Sure. Do I have to watch what I say?
Well, I can edit it out, so you can just be as belligerent as you want, but you probably just have only said like 3 words in a sentence.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a joy of my new job, a passion project. It's called For Rent: Conversations to Better the Rental Industry. I've gotten a phenomenally long latitude and long leash from Single Key to really just carry this conversation forward and find ways to better our industry. So folks, it's going to be things from interviewing experienced, wonderful, charming personalities like Chris Noble, who's a great landlord. He's going to show you pro tips around the eviction process. I'm going to bring those kind of conversations in. I'm going to bring in influencers so we could have CEOs of up and coming tech companies, anything that affects our rental industry that can provide value. We'll have those conversations. I'm even shooting for the moon here and the stars. I'm trying to get our premier, Daniel Smith, on this podcast, perhaps even in front of you guys. I'm leveraging that because there's an election coming up here in only a few months away in May, and she needs to talk to us and talk about how they're going to move forward and talk about some of the shortcomings in our legislation and ways we can make this industry better for everyone. So
look at you go with no punches pulled there, are you?
I don't know.
You didn't even tell me this.
No, I didn't. By the way, Chris, see, we're bad at communicating. We just call each other up once in a while and talk about like short things. And then we're like, oh, we should do a shop talk. Yeah, let's do a shop talk. And then here we are now doing the shop talk. And can you do the Airbnb one in January? Oh yeah, I can. Who's this? I gotta go. I lost the Facebook page. I don't know who that is.
I'll find out too. Can you do? Oh, that's a Barbara Bunk.
Yeah, definitely, Barbara. I actually, it's in one of my podcast episodes, and I've done a short take, and I'll do an extended take. I think there's a lot of value in that conversation. Again, it comes back to the due diligence side of this business. It's just so important. Tenants, whether you're going to do a sublease with an Airbnb host, I think I say my official answer, it depends. It's a bullshit answer, I know, but it does. It depends. Ooh. But it's just like vetting the tenant. You got to vet the business. If they've got their ducks in the order, then hey, why not? Especially if they're going to pay market rate and they're cleaning the property every week, perfect. But depends.
Yeah. So we've had somebody on who's an Airbnb expert. Well, maybe we can get him back.
I like it.
Good. Thanks, folks.
Okay.
Well, are we out of here?
Yeah, we're out. Have a good one.
Hey, remember, this is the Alberta Landlord community. We are the #1 go-to Facebook page for Alberta Landlords. See y'all soon.
Pump those tires.
See you guys soon. See you guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.